Hey, loves, Liz here. How are you today? I hope you're really fine. Today, we're going to talk about the Dark Triad. Dun dun dun. When I used to teach soldiers in the military, I used to say, "You guys ready for the three triangles?" And they're like, "What is the man talking about?" So I used to talk about the drama triangle, which I already did a video on. Now I'm going to talk about the Dark Triad and the third triangle. Third triangle, you're going to have to wait. But today is a little bit of a deep, perhaps a little bit dark subject, but I want to go into it and see how we do. All right. So the dark triad is a set of antisocial personality disorders that are defined by the DSM. I'm going to explain that in a minute, as narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy or psychopathy. There are others, like sometimes sociopathy or falls into that as well. We're going to describe the difference between that and psychopathy. But I think it's important to know this. The bluff, my bottom line up front is, folks, if you're relating with someone like this and you can leave, you should just really leave. They won't change and they will hurt you. We'll go into a lot of the details, so let's go. So I'm going to share screen and go up into the teeny tiny corner. All right, so here's the dark triad in psychology: Machiavellianism, psychopathy, and narcissism. All right, so the DSM stands for Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, and I believe we're up to the DSM-5. Basically, the American Psychiatric Association has a book describing common language of all mental disorders and how to diagnose them. I cannot diagnose. So just in brief, who am I? I have a doctor of ministry in transpersonal psychology. I'm not a licensed clinician or therapist, just for full disclosure. What I focus on is a sort of a spiritual psychology that works on the transcendent and spiritual aspects of human experience and human psychology. So kind of the biofield, all of it, as you see from my videos here, if you're looking at the rest of my content. That's who I am. So I've trained as a coach 4 different training systems in the last 10 years or 12 years. I love it. 12 years. I first trained with Martha Beck, and she said this to us in 2012. And this is a quote you can find on the internet when you Google Martha Beck and Dark Triad. I want to read it to you in case you want to just put the phone down and listen, or because it's important to read this out loud. Cruelty, whether physical or emotional, isn't normal. It may signal what psychologists call the dark triad of psychopathic, narcissistic, and Machiavellian personality disorders. 1 out of every 25 individuals has an antisocial personality disorder. Their prognosis for recovery is 0. Their potential for hurting you about 100%. So don't assume that a vicious person just had a difficult childhood or a terrible day. Most people with awful childhoods end up being empathetic, and most people, even on their worst days, don't seek satisfaction by inflicting pain. When you witness evil, if only the tawdry evil of a conversational stiletto twist, use your ninjutsu, wait for a distraction, and then disappear. And that's Martha Beck. So their potential for hurting you is about 100%. Their prognosis for recovery is 0. Ninjutsu is kind of like an Aikido style, martial arts to get out of the situation. You don't need to fight them. You frankly need to leave. We'll talk about all that. So let's talk about a psychopath. I've got definitions up so we can talk about it, and I'm going to read them to you. Again, you can put your device down if you want to just listen. But a psychopath is a person who engages repeatedly in criminal and antisocial behavior without remorse or empathy for those victimized. A person with a personality disorder indicated by a pattern of lying, cunning, manipulating, glibness, exploitation, heedlessness, arrogance, delusions of grandeur, sexual promiscuity, low self-control, disregard for morality, lack of acceptance of responsibility, callousness, lack of empathy, and remorse. Such an individual may be especially prone to violent and criminal offenses. Now, you'll see when we define all these that all 3 of the ones we're discussing today all have quite a bit of overlap. That's why they're in a pile in the dark triad. But Machiavellian has some things that shine more than other things. And the narcissist is more of a godlike thing. Machiavellian wants to move you around on that chessboard. But let's just read and study. But there's a great deal of overlap, and a lot of overlap between what a sociopath is and what a psychopath is. There is apparently a difference. Now let's talk about a Machiavellian. A Machiavellian uses clever but often dishonest methods that deceive people to win power or control. How I like to look at it is a Machiavellian likes to move you around on the chessboard for their own ends, but they don't care about you. You are a pawn in their world. As I joke, they don't want to kill the host. They want your energy, your time, your money. And now listen, when you're a commander or you're running a CEO of a company, it's important to have some of these traits. But when you're exhibiting these traits, when you're exhibiting the psychology to your people at home, that is not good. But you need a commander to lead into war if necessary, to run the mission. And you need a CEO to make the money for the shareholders, right? Here's another way to talk about it. Somewhat Machiavellian is sneaky, cunning, and lacking a moral code. The word comes from the Italian philosopher Niccolo Machiavelli, who wrote the political treatise The Prince in the 1500s, that encourages that the ends justifies the means, and especially among politicians. So it doesn't matter how you get there as long as you get there. Now, I think a lot of us know about narcissist. This is an excessive preoccupation with or the admiration of oneself. A personality disorder characterized by self-preoccupation, need for admiration, lack of empathy, and unconscious deficits in self-esteem. So that's the point, is they have a low self-esteem, so they have to pump themselves up. Kind of like the class clown too. Erotic pleasure is derived from contemplation or admiration of one's own body or self, especially as a fixation on or a regression to an infantile stage of development. Like it's all about me. And this comes from the Greek mythology about Narcissus, who actually looked in a pond and admired himself all the time. That's where the word comes from. I want to discuss and bring up all these three we're talking about actually have subcategories. I am not the expert. I don't care to be, but I know enough to help people and to drop a seed so you can go study it if you think you're hanging out with someone with such an antisocial personality disorder. But there's something also called covert narcissism. Now, the Dark Triad is usually, I say usually, male to female or usually male dominated. It usually is. Usually. I'm just a generalization, but not all the time. Covert narcissism is usually female to male because in general, women are more passive or don't feel or don't have as much power, especially physical power over the situation. So they do it sneakily with the passive aggressive type of movement. The covert narcissist fails to develop empathy, self-awareness, or a stable sense of identity. Covert narcissists avoid the spotlight and prefer passive aggressive means of controlling others. Tactics of a covert narcissist might include belittling, triangulation, and avoiding direct responsibility. Now you see there's a lot of overlap, lack of moral code, lack of empathy. They just want to use you for power. It's all about power and control. Now in the drama triangle, we were talking about sort of normal family or normal interactions dysfunction. This is more definite abuse. And this is why if you're with someone like this, you need to leave if possible. All right. Triangulation is using a third person against a person. So someone could talk bad about you. So to another person to get that person not to like you, that's the idea around triangulation. Covert narcissism. Richard Grannon, I'll put his name below, does a lot of work on YouTube about helping men in general work, get away from women and heal from women who are covert narcissists. It's very nasty. And actually, if you're thinking about the drama triangle, I just had this thought the other day, they're talking about the bully and the rescuer and the victim. The covert narcissist it's an ingenious psychology and terrible and nefarious and sinister because they get to be both, they play the roles of both the victim and the bully. It's crazy because they come along like the victim. Like I had a woman I was working with once and she'd say, I'd meet her for a session. She's like, oh my gosh, you look so tired today. Basically saying I look like shit. I'm like, I feel great. You're a you problem. Anyway, so let's go over a little bit of the difference. I know that the definition I read for psychopath looks like sociopath, but there is a little bit of a difference. In general, you can slow this down and read it. The sociopath definitely tends more toward criminal or violent behavior, where the psychopath it tends to be more in control of their emotions. Kind of what they like to do is get you riled up so that you act out and so they can talk about your behavior, but they stay calm the whole time. It's for their own gain and they don't like to develop lasting relationships. They get you riled up so you're triggered and they're like, what's your problem, right? And it's gaslighting, the whole thing. We're going to get to that. All right, so this is the infamous power and control wheel. There's a lot of these you can Google. You can Google images, power and control wheel, and get your own and print it up. I will read this carefully. I'll read this carefully, some of the things which you understand, and I'm going to add to it. So first of all, it's all about power and control, and this can lead and escalate to physical and sexual violence for sure. But people can use harmful language like name calling, playing mind games, humiliating someone, making someone feel insecure, making someone feel guilty, telling lies or private information about someone like doxing someone. Using social standing like popularity, class, race, or disability to manipulate someone else, making all the decisions for someone, being the only one to define roles in the relationship or make the decisions in a relationship. Using technology. This is a new thing, blowing up someone's phone, unwanted text messages, breaking into someone's socials and finding out what they're up to. You can actually break into someone's video systems and watch what they're watching or play a movie for them. Pressuring someone to take sexual pictures and send them, and then they use them for like revenge porn, that kind of thing. You can use intimidation, like using looks, action, or gestures. You can destroy property and smash things and destroy things. I used to be in a relationship with someone who would throw out things on me. He would destroy my plants. He mowed down my plants, and he threw out people who gave me gifts. He would throw them out, and it was a mild kind of passive kind of violence. Abusing pets or loved ones or plants. Displaying weapons. Then there's also the kind of the gaslighting, minimizing, denying, or blaming, minimizing the impact of abuse, saying, I'm not abusing you, not taking those concerns seriously, saying the abuse didn't happen, blaming abusive behavior on stress, alcohol, drugs, jealousy, or family history, past marriage, past relationships, saying that the victim caused the abuse. This is total gaslighting, folks. Using threats of physical and sexual violence, threatening to leave, threatening to commit suicide, take the kids, report someone, making someone do illegal things, threatening to expose someone's immigrant status or HIV status or now COVID status, who knows, private information. Sexual coercion, harassment or assault. This is not funny. I'm just laughing at my pronunciation. Manipulating to get sex or other sexual activity, getting someone drunk or drugged to get sex, destroying or refusing to have birth control to share an STD or to get someone pregnant or something, making sexual comments. This is sexual harassment. Looks, inappropriate jokes, telling sexual jokes, sexually touching, grabbing, rubbing, pinching someone, whistling, without their consent. We know about this stuff. There's exclusion, controlling what someone does or where he or she goes, deciding who someone sees, talks to, controlling someone's friendships, limiting outside involvement. I've been in relationships where all these flavors of things have happened. Isolating someone from friends or family, pressuring someone to be part of a group. Now, before I go to the next one, I want to say there's also, I will call, the religious abuse, where, that one partner says to the other that you're not following the laws of God, or you're going to go to hell if you don't behave this way. It kind of may fall into gender roles. I know I'm speaking quickly, but I want to speak these things out. So if you hear them and say, oh shit, you can do something about it. I have a funny thing in a minute. There's using physical violence, hitting, scratching, shaking, choking, all the things, all the things. It's all about power and control. I have a funny story, which is actually not so funny, but I remember I was going to a mega church in Boston, and I was married at the time. And there used to be a sign inside the bathroom. There are many bathrooms now saying, are you being this and this and this and this and this? Call this number. It's domestic violence. And there was many of the things on this power and control wheel. And I used to sit there going, of course, I'm married. Sorry, but of course I have suffered these things. I'm married. Okay, so when I used to talk to soldiers about this, I'd always get some rascal raising his hand going, ma'am, how do I know I'm not a psychopath? They're kind of trying to get a rise out of me, but there is a test for it, and I'll put the link in the description box below. But if you're curious about someone and you've seen some red flags, or you're wondering, you can take the test on their behalf, or you could take it if you're wondering. I'm just letting you know there's a test. This is the most official one, and it's free. And again, my point, if you're with one of these people, you just need to leave. Now, if you're married and you've got the picket fence and the family van and the 4 kids and the property and the house, I get it. It's very hard. This video is not about getting away from domestic violence. Please get help if you need to. And the reason we don't put these things out is we don't want to give the abusers our tactics. Okay, so if you're in this situation, I'm going to come back to this slide. Please call this number and you can get some help. You want to call this from a safe number. All right. If you're just dating the person, by golly, get out. Now, one book I read in the 2010s, this book is Why Does He Do That by Lundy Bancroft. There are many abuse books out there to read and study, but so many places on the web and stuff don't tell you actually how to leave. This book tells you at the end of the book the different types of abusers and how to leave them and what's going to happen. This guy has studied all kinds of male abusers. In this case, it's male abuse. That is the most common, but again, not all. And he actually, in his practice, he says only 2% ever change, unlike Martha Beck. But still, the odds are seriously against you. But I recommend taking a look at this book. Why does he do that? Inside the minds of angry and controlling men. I have nothing against men. I love the gender. I think you're a fantastic species. I highly recommend men, but some of us are not good people. So I just want to go over this today with you and talk about this because it is a seriously important issue. And I'd be a liar if I didn't share this information. There's so many creators out there on the web talking about this, but if you're looking at my content and you're interested in this stuff, I want to drop a seed that you might want to do some more research on this thing. I love you very much. I'll talk to you soon. Have a good day. Bye.